Is Adderall the answer? I'm not so sure.
As a former Adderall addict, I brought this one up.
But it's everywhere. College campuses, it's rampant now.
Adderall feels good in the moment, like a lot of drugs do. And I got hooked really hard. I used to use it in college. I used it recreationally as an adult, and then I finagled my way into a pretty heavy prescription, like 60 milligrams a day.
Yeah.
And I say this just to be like, I've been there, done that. I don't know how I weaned off. I'm Nick, the Curious Patient. You're Dr. Ron Dummar.
Hey, everybody.
This is the Be Well Now podcast.
Yeah.
And I just wondered.
We're so glad you're here with us.
We're glad you're here. Having weaned myself off Adderall, again, I don't know how. It was very hard work. I know how powerful the drug is. And you hear so much about Adderall and ADHD, and I just thought, I texted you the other day, I'm like, is Adderall the answer? An exploration of ADHD. And I'm thinking about someone like me who has kids who are going to grow up in the phone age and be distracted. And I think it's a throwaway line. Everyone's like, oh, I got ADHD, so that's an excuse for why, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. It's an excuse for being embarrassed in public when a child acts a certain way. It's an excuse for being embarrassed when, at school when a child is told something. Let me tell you something about that. I had a patient just recently who came in, a mother of a child. The mom was in tears. Her child had run into, she's a teacher as well. Her child had run into her classroom and was very, very persistent that he needed her attention at that moment, and it completely threw her off. And there was something that had taken place in the classroom, this young boy's classroom, that had unsettled him, made him very unsettled, and he had begun to act out in the classroom. The teacher had had a few different discussions prior to this time with the mother as well. And then finally, this was the boiling point, right? They'd reached the boiling point, and they were having this conversation after school that day as what they should do. And they'd brought different counselors in, and they were telling her, you know, it's probably time you need to be putting him on some medication. And the mom said, I don't feel right about that. I don't feel right about that. And something else is going on. And so what did I do? I said, listen, what we need to do is we need to help this child, help him recognize his worth and his value. And what we did is we created a script, she and I together, and we wrote out some phrases that we wanted him to embody, to be as an individual, right? Not things we were trying to create to change him, but things like, I am experiencing love, joy, and peace in the classroom. I am enjoying my educational experience. I am enjoying, so we came up with a variety of different cues like that. We recorded them. I asked her to record them, her reading them with music in the background, and play them to him every night. And a week later, literally a week later, the teacher came in, like, what have you done? Is he on medication? He's completely different. He's changed. He's wonderful. And I saw her just the other day, and she said, it's been months now, and there's been no hyperactivity, no overacting, no indication at all that this kid would need to be put on medication.
And yet the teacher or supervisor said, we need to get your kid medicated.
Everyone is at their wit's end. Everyone. They were all like, what do we do? The boiling point had been reached. A child needed attention. So what do we call this? Usually people say they have, like you said, they're distracted. They have attention deficit. Sometimes I wonder if the deficit is not the child, but the deficit is the attention that's been lacking, that the child needs to receive.
You think ADHD partially could be caused by a lack of getting attention from
their
parents?
Yes, I think attention deficit hyperactivity, absolutely. To some degree, it's the child's body expressing some symptom or something that's happening inside of it, and it's trying to communicate to the world outside and say, help me. I need help. Something's not right. I need to change things about the way things are going right now because it doesn't feel right for me. And that can be a lot of reasons. That can be for a lot of reasons. But are there other issues? Is there, in my opinion, I would say with ADHD.
Yeah, what is ADHD?
It's not just poor behavior. There is a significant amount of lack of concentration, focus, reading a paragraph, and not being able to even conceptualize or understand what you just read, right? There's a significant amount of, I would say, neurological deficit that takes place before we would hope to say, oh, someone has ADHD.
But what is ADHD?
So really, ADHD is a dysfunction within the nerves, right? So that there's a poorly performing nerves so that your brain isn't functioning as quickly or as actively as it should. So when when a problem or something is given to you, you have a more difficult time focusing and concentrating because the synapses are not functioning like they should. They're not sending the signals as well. So that's the deficit, as well as that this neurological deficit is preventing you from being able to access the executive functioning that you would need in order to make proper decision making. And to say, okay, I'm going to do this first and then this, and to break something down into proper steps and to organize it and then to execute a plan, right?
But what's causing that?
So what I say is causing it, and I talk to a lot of parents about this, is really inflammation. It's brain inflammation.
You're not calling this a phone issue. You're talking about it something deeper with the brain inflammation?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, talk to me more.
So when patients, anytime we have a neurological related issue, a mental health issue as well, there's an inflammatory process as well. And so we need to get to the root of the inflammation, or to the root of the dysfunction, right? There's an illness, there's something that's occurring, and again, our body's going to send signals or symptoms to us. Well, we have a disease state, you could say. We have some sort of dysfunction, and our body's speaking to us saying something's wrong, and it's doing that by making it difficult for me to focus, to concentrate, low energy, making me feel like I have to rest longer than I have to rest, or I wake up still feeling tired. Something's wrong. These are all messages and signals being sent by the body. Well, those messages, in the case of ADHD, are inflammation of the nerves, of the brain itself. And where we have inflammation, then we're going to have insufficient axonal transmission. So if we're sending signals through the nerves improperly, our ability to compute things and to be able to make executive decisions is going to be lessened. So where does this brain inflammation come from? More often than not, it's occurring from the foods that we eat. Okay, so the inflammation will often start in the gut. Sometimes it can actually be a infection, though, that a patient has or has dealt with.
Something that isn't meaning like, oh, I'm sick today, but just something that's hanging around, affecting you in sort of a malaise type.
Yeah, we have infections, or we have viruses, pathogenic factors that can become more abundant or pronounced or manifested in a more pathogenic way in our body. We harbor those things a lot, all the time. And so who's to say that our body, our immune system, isn't revving up to try to address something that happened to get lodged in the neurological system, in the nervous system? Well, if it's trying to clear some pathogenic factor or even a toxin or a heavy metal, and the immune system's revving up, you're going to have inflammation there, because that's what that's the immune response. Inflammation is a healing response.
So you're talking about there being an infection, and then inflammation is ramping up to deal with that, and that inflammation is also causing ADHD?
Yes, that's a potential causative factor for ADHD.
Potential causative factor.
Mm-hmm.
Where do phones and all of these things that just demand our attention, I feel like
so these
the
are
thing I want to
tools.
do is blame the phone for causing my brain to not be able to focus because there's always something I could be thinking about. But that is more of surface level iceberg, and we need to go under the water to figure out what's really going on.
Absolutely. So we need to look internally, right? We need to say what's going on in the body internally and how can we address and help this patient. But yeah, staying away from or minimizing phone or screen time, yeah, that can be beneficial. But again, there's a lot of adults, a lot of people too, who spend a lot of time on screens for their job. And not all of those adults have ADHD. Many of them, or some of them, do have ADHD, right? So if it was just a screen issue, then what we would be able to do is extrapolate and say, okay, what number of individuals, how many individuals do we have, how many of them are on screens, how many hours a day, and then we would be able to see a really nice correlation between the amount of time on screens and ADHD, which doesn't exactly correlate. So screens are a tool, like our phone's a tool, computers are a tool. We use them for work, we use them in a variety of different ways. And so it's a matter of knowing how to utilize, or the executive function of making proper decisions to be able to utilize this tool.
Seems like the answer is going to be real nuanced, step by step, hard work to try to improve this. Because getting your executive function of your brain, having gone through some interesting programs in my life, one of them was like, start cooking. Because cooking is an executive function trainer.
Yes.
My goal is to make this dinner. I need to first go out to the grocery store,
recipe,
buy the stuff, right? Find the recipe,
Mm-hmm.
cut it all up, cook it. And that forces you to follow through with these step by step to get something done. It's not a fast thing.
Well,
So-
and we want things that are fast.
Of course we do.
Like in our culture, our entire culture is speed driven.
I would argue that everyone's always wanted it fast if they could get it. Wouldn't our mammal, cavemen, wouldn't they have wanted something they could just grab if they could?
Yeah, it would be easier, right? Convenient. That's what
Like
we've
if
worked for.
John went out and hunted it, and I just had to sit there and grab it, like I'd be happy with that.
Thanks, brah, right? So, and you would just hope that John's always there, right? The problem is when John can't do, or Amazon John can't get that 2-hour delivery down anymore.
Right.
And then we're up a creek, right? Oh my gosh. And literally the emotions that are in you when there's that change, the emotions that you experience. Well, part of the processing of the mental health or of ADHD, part of the hyperactivity is, okay, now I have this emotion because I didn't quite get what I wanted when I felt like I needed it. What do I do with this energy now? What do I do with this disappointment? How do I process that? Am I going to overact? So what's my reasoning now? What do I do with this emotion? And how do we teach our kids what to do with that emotion? And that's what happened with the young man that ran into my patient's classroom. His mom ran into his patient's classroom, or his mom's classroom, and it was this, what do I do? How do I communicate? I'm trying to tell, and my body's communicating with me, and I'm trying to communicate with others that I need something. And if I'm not getting what I want, or I'm not seeing that the needs are being met, I'm going to try to get that in a different way.
So where does Adderall fit in here? Because it's being prescribed year over year, more and more prescriptions of Adderall.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just kids. There's a ton of adults out there who are using this to stay focused at work, to be present at home.
Yeah.
And from my own experience, I was pulling all-nighters, working a second job. 3 a.m. was early for me to go to bed. I was getting 2 or 3 hours of sleep for like 2 years.
Yeah.
I started smoking cigarettes. I was off the deep. I'm not blaming Adderall. I had a lot to work on, but it's a very enticing drug.
So
it makes you feel good, excited.
It's a stimulant.
You're like, I want to be here. This is so exciting. I want to learn more about this. And you're just like, you're fully here. Your foot's on the gas pedal, and you just like, I can't imagine wanting to be anywhere else. It's very euphoric in that way.
Yeah.
It's enticing, and then you want more and more because your body gets used to it. So it's not just like one pill is good. Your body gets used to one pill, you don't really feel anything. So then it's like two. It's a drug. To me, it's very, we looked this up earlier. it actually is a Schedule II drug, same category as fentanyl and oxycodone, high potential for abuse, and I was abusing it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's addictive forming. It's habit forming. And who's not going to like that kick that you can get from a massive surge of dopamine and of norepinephrine, right? But obviously, if you're pushing norepinephrine consistently through the body, you're going to have a significant amount of effect on the cardiovascular system as well. So it's going to affect the heart. It's going to affect the cardiovascular system. And it does affect a variety of different functions in the body. And it can actually, at the end, make you even more fatigued and more tired and crash more, which then kind of turns you back to it. Like, well, I can get out of this.
You can be the superhero and get the thing done that you needed to get done. It gives you that boost sometimes to stay focused, right? But it feels like you're on crack. Like, it's not, I'm not saying this is a good thing. I'm just saying, like, people use it for a reason.
Yeah, and so it is literally as an amphetamine, right? As an amphetamine, when you introduce it to your body, the drugs, pharmacotherapies, essentially what they do is they're designed to force and push through, right? I mean, that's overwhelm the body to some degree. So if there's a receptor to be had, it's going to insert itself, right? And so it will plug in, and then it pushes this overwhelming surge of dopamine and norepinephrine in the body, and that's what makes people go, "Whoa! I feel like I'm doing well. I can think, I can process, I can access parts of my brain I feel like I haven't accessed in a while." And it's because of this massive surge of dopamine. And the addictive or habit-forming part of that is in the dopamine as well, that dopamine surge, because we love that. It's part of what helps us feel so good. And it's the same thing that when you get a like, bing, you're like, oh, someone liked my post, right? They liked what I said. And that is really reassuring for us and reaffirming. So when I get that dopamine surge, I feel this reassuring nature of, it's okay. I'm good.
And the flip side of that coin is, why do you need to feel that reassuring, right? That's some of the work that I've done is like, if I like this feeling so much, why is that?
Yes.
And the darker side of the coin that's been sitting in the soil, where you peel it up and there's bugs and wet soil underneath there and you just don't even want to look there and touch there, is like, okay, what about me needs that reassurance? Why do I feel like I need that? What is missing in my life? And that's the hard work. It's a lot easier to take a pill and not worry about that for now.
Well, and addressing those things is actually what gives you the focus and the concentration longer term. So imagine going to work, like what you just described. Imagine going to work shortly after you got yelled at and flipped off, in your car, right? Some road rage. You get to work, how do you feel? Well, you feel flighty, your heart's maybe a little pounding, maybe someone really got in your face and it really unsettled you. Well, it takes you a while just to get yourself settled back down. So now magnify that and suppress it over time and carry it forward, and then pile on top of that lots of other similar type of issues or conditions that might come up, right? So when we see those type of things happen, or we have those things happen, it's important that we have tools. We have to have a skill set for us to be able to move past them, to clear it. And like the young boy that I mentioned before, we simply helped him move past one of those issues. And that was it. He was going to continue to demonstrate attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and dysfunction until we were able to release him of the tension that he was trying to tell us he had, and he had no idea what to do with. So that's why it's so important. We will continue to go out and reach out and seek for and feel unfulfilled. We will continue to feel that until we can do the work internally that we need to do.
Well, I guess the question is, should people take Adderall?
there are definitely some legitimate situations in where Adderall can be beneficial for people. So I'm not as an integrative medicine specialist, I'm not one to say don't take it. But like I would say with any medication, I had a discussion with another patient the other day, and I said, the most important question when beginning any medication, any drug, any narcotic, anything is, what's my exit strategy? If I'm going to start this, why am I starting it? And what are the parameters that need to be met in order for me to say, okay, now I can come off of this, right? And if I'm not creating an exit strategy, then I shouldn't have an entrance strategy. I shouldn't get on something if there's no plan to get off.
And that's your take on pharmaceuticals?
In general, yes. In general, absolutely. Now, absolutely, there are some instances with our patients too. This is a caveat on that, but there are some instances where certain people will have to be on things and end up needing to be on things for the rest of their life. That is a possibility. But that doesn't mean we don't attempt to have an exit strategy. We can still plan for that and still work towards achieving that exit strategy. But just going about as if there's no point in having an exit strategy is a big issue. So, is there a legitimate need for Adderall?
Like I'm talking
Absolutely.
about middle school kids whose parents don't know what to do, and they may not have heard this podcast. Like, what are the long-term ramifications? Because I'm telling you, it's really hard to get off of it. I could have seen myself just taking
anxiety,
it ad infinitum, right?
Anxiety, depression, these are actual long-term ramifications. Patients often who are on Adderall have difficult regulating their diet as far as what they should eat, right? And also they have difficulty eating oftentimes. So frequently we'll see malnutrition. So oftentimes people who are on Adderall, they are malnourished, they're not eating properly. And I mean, it's just like what you described. Well, why am I going to be on Adderall? Oftentimes people get on Adderall to push themselves through, to be this superhuman someone, basically to try to be someone that does not exist.
There's a little bit of a shame cycle there too. Once you realize, like, I'm using this as a crutch. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying there's not legitimate reasons, like you said, but a lot of people, it's kind of turned into a coffee for high-performing adults, or just trying to get through your day. And there's a little bit more shame in my mind anyway of like, I know I probably shouldn't be taking this. Like, I'm doing this because it feels good. It's a drug.
It doesn't need to be that common of a thing, right? It's definitely there. It's there for a reason, and let's let it function there for a reason. But we don't need to be pushing our care providers to prescribe it to us just so that we can feel like we can do better at that next exam, or so that we can focus better and get through this all-nighter. You know what I mean? It's like we need to actually address the dysfunction physiologically in our body and the dysfunction that's occurring mentally and energetically in our body. And then that will give us energy, sustained concentration, sustained memory, sustained focus, long term. And it's enduring. It's not fleeting. Adderall is fleeting, and you need to continually go back to it. And then you need to raise the dose. And so we're not looking for fleeting concentration. We're not looking for fleeting memory. We're looking for long-term memory, long-term focus, and lasting. Okay? So that's what we need in our lives. And that's what we want ultimately.
So how can we address what's going on and then foster some growth there?
So with parents, I would say the number one thing is, and I hear this a lot with our parents in general as well, they feel like it's very difficult to feed kids. It's very difficult to feed kids and to get them proper nutrients, proper nutrition.
So stressful.
And you know what? We got to do it. We got to do it. And, I don't like the taste of it. Well, keep putting it in front of them. Keep doing it. And you don't have to be upset or feel like a failure if they don't eat it one time, or if they leave it there, but just keep putting it in front of them and keep offering it to them. and explain to them that it's good for their body and it's beneficial. There are so many other options. There are so many other alternatives that we can use, actually even in place of, if we want to use healthier options to have better focus, better memory, concentration, like a plant-based Adderall, you could say. There are other options. There is a natural compound called acetylcholine, and acetylcholine actually works directly on the nerves to improve the bioavailability of dopamine in the body. Okay, so it's going to help you focus. You can actually use acupuncture. Acupuncture improves the availability of acetylcholine in the neural cleft, which then improves the ability of the nerves to transmit signals. Well, then you have better executive functioning and reasoning. So acupuncture, there's herbs bacoba, the guarana is another one that can help. Now, it has stimulant in it, guarana, like green tea. They both have caffeine, so they have some stimulant. But it's been shown to also improve memory and focus and to help you concentrate and to get through things, right? There are many other herbal things that are non-addictive forming that you can utilize, but you also need to make sure that you're paying attention to your gut health, to your nutrition, getting the minerals, the vitamins, the macro and micronutrients that you need.
So none of that had anything to do with emotions per se. It was all sort of metabolic health.
That was
focused.
all physical, metabolic, physiological health. Yeah.
But with this one kid, you had him kind of work on some affirmations.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. And for him, it wasn't. We didn't do anything physiological. We didn't do any metabolic health. And
so knowing your practice, you often will run blood labs. And
yes.
It seems like that's just really taken off because of how effective it is with patients. So that's one way to address what's physiologically going on.
Mm-hmm.
You give guidance on what to eat. So that's one place to go. But then the emotions with this kid. I just wanted to, if people are like, wait, he said a bunch of stuff, what could I do? Like, get your blood tested and send it.
So absolutely, we can evaluate your labs. We can find and detect hidden infections if they're there, or find physiological dysfunctions in organ systems as well, and then begin a plan to correct those. Brain inflammation is often connected to gut inflammation. So what we eat is so important. Infections can also cause brain inflammation. Exposure to chemicals, exposures to pesticides, exposure to all these things can cause and do cause, we know, brain inflammation. So we need to be able to create a plan to clear that from the patient's body if they've had an exposure like that. But it's the inflammation that's causing it, right? It's the inflammation that's causing the symptom, like you're feeling the symptom, the patient's having this hyperactivity or the attention deficit. We need to clear that inflammation, and that's what's going to help us to be able to get the patient back to where they need to be. So with when it comes to more energy medicine or more mental health, like we did a variety of affirmations, and I call it scripting. But I love to do scripting with my patients. I believe in whole body health, integrative, pharmaceutical and non-pharmacological wellness. So I like to put all the pieces together. So one thing that I do is I will ask patients to write scripts, and I have samples for them to be able to understand, okay, well, what type of things am I even wanting to say? These scripts can be focused on helping them to create more abundance in their life. It can be focused on helping them to achieve something that seems very overwhelming in their career. It can be focused on helping them to perform better as an athlete. We've done a lot of those. You can also do sessions where we can make scripts for you. You can have scripts, and then you can record them with you reading them, because I think this is very, very powerful. When you read the script, you hear your voice or a parent's voice if you're a child. Super powerful. But if you can hear your voice expressing to you as you go to sleep at night with nice calm music in the background, how wonderful you are and how effortlessly you're going through life and how much peace and love and joy and light you're experiencing, and how exciting it is to accomplish that task that's coming up, and how fun it is to celebrate the reward, right, on the other side. And you can write scripts that help you basically envision all of that as you go to sleep. And then as you fall asleep, you're moving into that REM state, and we can drop deep. Then we're really programming our brain. We're really retraining the way that we feel. And if I'm sitting here complimenting myself and I'm kind of in a lucid and then all of a sudden into REM state, how does that feel? Like that's going to get your dopamine to go up, right? You're interacting in some way and you're feeling those compliments. If you stand in front of the mirror and compliment yourself and you practice that every day, it feels good. It feels good. You know who you are and you know the capability that you have, right? And so when you compliment yourself, your dopamine levels go up, your serotonin levels are balanced better, your acetylcholine is improved. And so that's something that can be really beneficial for patients as well, and for mothers to be able to, or fathers, to be able to implement with their kids.
That's a good place to start, I guess.
Yeah, it's a good place to start. There's definitely a lot more digging to be done for us, but there are lots of herbal alternatives. For somebody who's saying, what do I do because I need to come off of Adderall or I'm trying to come off of Adderall, there are other alternatives that can help you do that, to help you with your memory and your focus and your concentration as you draw down, okay?
Because I did it for like 2 months, and it was just like I kind of committed to 2 months of fogginess and mood swings, and it was rough.
Yeah.
But I wanted it that bad, but I know it's not easy.
Oh, it's not. It's not easy. It's not easy. But you can do it. You can do it. And I promise, and I've not been in your seat. I've not been on Adderall. But my promise is that the level of focus and the level of concentration of having a physiology that is well functioning is far better than having one that you have to put specific little moments or stints of functioning, what you would call high functioning, into. And so we're looking for sustained health over time. That's what we want. And yeah, we know we're going to have ups and downs, but to be in a state where you have a mental clarity, you can make good decisions, and it's you. It's all you. You're not being helped by any specific pharmacological component. It's not overwhelming your senses and telling you, okay, you can feel this way now and perform this way now. You're doing it from you, right? Supported by naturally occurring substances that also have learned in life to sustain themselves in a living way, in a living, balanced, harmonious way in nature. And those are the substances that we want to be relying on, because those are the substances that endure. If everything's gone at some moment, and you look at everything that we've done as a people, and it's easy for us to sit and think and say, oh, this will never go away. It's too great. We're too big for these systems to fail. Well, we did learn that there was a shortage in Adderall, right? In August,
fall.
September, something. There was a shortage, and sometimes these things fail. So the question is, what do I want to be reliant on? Is more those things that are in my environment, those things that are going to sustain life, even if they're going to be able to sustain life, even if we as human beings are gone. They continue living.
I like it.
Hope you all enjoyed that.
I feel inspired. I'm going to do some affirmations.
Do it.
I think it sounds pretty awesome.
It'll help you focus.
If you have more questions, bewellnowpodcast@gmail.com. And man, this was a fun conversation.
Yeah, I'm sure there's more to this one out there.
This is why I'm being awkward about it, because I know you talk for another 30 minutes.
Good.
There's more to
This
talk
is
about.
great. Yeah.
But I hope this is helpful for somebody. This is Be Well Now.
Namaste.
Namaste.